Danny and Jamie Holland. They're part of our church. They have a counseling center called Coast to Coast. Danny's been counseling over 35 years, and Jamie is a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Yes, and also oversees at Regent. What is the program you oversee? The nursing. So both of them PhDs, brilliant minds. But what I love about them is they love Jesus and they're very practical with it. And so tonight we've asked them to be here for the first session, and then I'll jump up with a couple of our pastors for session number 2. And so I'm going to hand it over to them. Well, why don't we pray first? Hey, so Lord, we just love you. And we're just honored tonight that in this room there are people who want their marriages and their families to flourish. And Lord, I believe that's your heart. And so tonight we invite you, Holy Spirit, and we just pray that you will open our hearts to hear sometimes hard stuff, but most of the time just great stuff that we can instill in our families and marriages to make them be great. And so, Lord, as Danny and Jamie share, I just pray thank you for wisdom, and I pray that every person goes home tonight with a great nugget that they can institute in their family, in Jesus' name. Amen. So can we welcome Danny and Jamie?
All right. Well, thanks for being here. I'll tell you, it's good to see you guys. Good to see so many people here for this. We want to cover a lot of territory here. We've read the questions. You guys had some really good questions. So really excited about getting around to that too and getting into some of the questions. So we are going to jump in and kind of cover a bunch of things. I want to start off a little bit, though, talking a little bit about men and women, about love in general, and kind of build a little framework around what we're kind of building toward and talking about and some of the different barriers and things too. Understand that there is hope. Whatever you're going through, there is hope. I mean, God is infinitely greater to accomplish what he wants in our lives and our marriages than we are of messing it up. Okay, so just know that as we kind of talk about this, but we're going to talk from a lot of research. We work in the scholarly environment and come from a faith background, and both have worked in pastoral leadership and church life too. So we'll bring both of it together, but we want to kind of touch on this specifically from some of the research-based things that are out there. So I'm going to share some research with you, and everything I share with you, I'm going to share with you the antidotes, the solutions, and the things you can do. So I'm pretty stoked. I love working with couples. I work with a lot of them, and it's one of my favorite things to do because I love seeing marriages strengthened and families strengthened. It's one of the best things in the world. Human relationships, though, they're pretty predictable. I mean, people think that marriage and couples are not. It's kind of like this is just this random thing, but they're actually pretty predictable. You know, my favorite quote, though, about just understanding women in general is from one of the great scholars, Will Ferrell, who
I have no idea where he's coming from.
Yeah. Well, he said trying to understand women is like trying to smell the color 9. And so
that was predictable.
It put so poignantly. I thought that was just like, that's just brilliant, because it can seem like it's really a mystery. But you know, they've done a lot of research, and the number one thing women are looking for, and of those surveyed, it was unanimous of what they're looking for. The number one thing they're looking for in a partner is trustworthiness. Trustworthy. Are you who you say you are? Will you be for me what you say you will be for me? That was the biggest thing that women wanted, to make sure they're connecting with somebody who has that level of trustworthiness. And so their biggest complaint, though, is just someone not being there for them through the research. Not enough intimacy, not enough connection. And, you know, we see that quite a bit just in that kind of thing, too. Men tend to complain more about not enough sex and too much fighting. So that's kind of from the male perspective a little bit, too. But
and it's important to note that those are outcomes. That's where everything that they're complaining about is the outcome of something else. So there's a root.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and then there's a lot there, and they're kind of looking at the dynamic and just looking at what kind of pops above the surface, like Jamie's saying, is just really sometimes where we put a lot of attention and focus. And so we want to get down to the problem and the root problem. So we're going to get into the real foundations of stuff, and then we're going to address the questions through that foundation as well too. So I'm going to cover all the questions we were given and get into that too. So that's going to be a big thing too. But man, we can easily dismiss our wives' emotions every time we try to fix it or minimize it. It's not that bad. Why are you so intense about this? It's not that bad. That never happens in my house, but it can happen. It could happen theoretically. But we can do that too. And so this is I'll give you some pro tips along the way. Here's one pro tip, guys, specifically for men. Listening is far sexier than talking. Okay, so no matter what you're trying to say, listening is next level. Okay, so if you can get that down, be genuinely interested, your game will increase. And so, men want to be desired. They want to be that person that you adore, that you want in their life, and and approve of the way they are and respect them and all that. So, they want that connection. So men and women want different things. Men often think, though, what is she trying to accomplish with being so emotional? What is she trying to get at? What does she really want? And it's pretty interesting, because men, there's a thing called meta emotions we're very familiar with. And a meta emotion is a belief about an emotion. So if you as a guy were raised thinking crying makes you weak, or you're a baby, you're a sissy, suck it up, be a man. You heard that kind of stuff. You think when you feel emotional, you have this meaning attached to it of what it means. That's the meta emotion. And so we run into that quite a bit where people have certain beliefs about certain emotions, and those triggers can be really powerful. And so just be aware that we have those things, and they're tough.
Sometimes more powerful than the emotion itself. It has a lot more value than even the emotion.
Yeah. We see a lot of reaction from that. People will react to the meta emotion because they are defining it as we come along. We're kind of used to that. The brain is very quick at predicting. It's trying to predict. So we see certain scenarios, we think, oh, that's a mother and her baby. Oh, this is that. I mean, we just assume these things because the brain's trying to quickly predict. But again, just be aware of that there are things. Men need to know something that might blow your mind about women, though. Women, they do have a lot of emotions, but there are no negative emotions with women. Emotions are just emotions. No agenda. They're not trying to make a point. It is just emotion coming out. It is as natural for them as breathing. Now, emotions are great because, guys, they're an opportunity for us. That's the biggest thing. They're opportunities for us to go next level with intimacy. We can do certain things, which I'll teach you how to do in the next few minutes, that you can just lean in and really kind of be a part of that journey with them at a deeper level and increase intimacy. It's also an opportunity to build emotional connection with your partner and demonstrate the trustworthiness that we've talked about. So these are things that are powerful opportunities. We may see these things and have a default how we want to handle that, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But men and women are a little bit different in those things. Let's talk about the science of love, though. I want to get into love because I think it's pretty cool. So love is all about what happens in the brain. I mean, the brain, everything happens in there, and that's where we kind of get the dynamic in the brain of how things kind of work. But when we start to fall in love, all kinds of things fire. There's different hormones, different chemicals, oxytocin, all these different things that kind of release the cuddle. That's the cuddle hormone. And then there's the molecule of love, and all these different things that release in the brain to make us feel in love with somebody and have that connection. And they're very, very powerful. Interestingly, we're talking about oxytocin. When you pet a dog, the dog's oxytocin releases. So dogs get the same impact from you petting them as you do as a couple cuddling. It's interesting. So many, you better pick up your game because you have a competitor in the house. But when we talk about love, there really are some stages of love, and this is what I want to kind of touch on. There's limerence, which is the first one, which I'll tell you about in a minute. There's building trust, and then there's the building of commitment and loyalty. Now, these are critical because of a lot of the different things that happen in those different stages. Now, limerence is basically the love feelings. It's basically that honeymoon phase, that overwhelming feeling. You still have it.
Butterflies, oh, of course.
Yeah, so she still has it.
I just melt when I look into his eyes.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Good stuff. Thank you. More of that. Okay, that's not helping.
Oxytocin.
That's not helping. So limerence, though, is that whole part where we have that feeling. And there's an overwhelming automatic feeling of reciprocation. We want to, it's like, I love you. No, I love you more. I love you more. That's an automatic thing. It's very, very easy to do in those moments when you have this high level of infatuation, sexual attraction, this feeling of just that, all those chemicals firing. That lasts for about 2 years. in a relationship, in a marriage. And so roughly at that point,
Some people are checking their timeline.
their calendar,
Where
they're like, oh man.
Wait.
Yeah, then work becomes work. Okay, I hate to say this to you, if you're newlywed or you're engaged, but you need to understand, in order to sustain love in this wonderful relationship you have, there will be a time when you will need to work. And all the married couples who've been here for a while said, there's work. There's no other way to do it. It's no longer automated. What was easy and automated is no longer easy and automated. So we have to have that thing. So we have to have that ability to connect in those ways. And so, again, we get to that stage where we get into the second stage, which is where we're building trust. And that can be kind of hard because the success you have at that stage is directly from how well you can argue. How successfully you can argue and work through things is where you will determine how well you can build trust. And so that's one of the things that's really important, is that when we get into the phase where we begin to work at this, and it becomes a little more difficult and challenging, we have to develop systems to increase and maintain our admiration and fondness for our partners. We have to continue to stay at that place. Many things you can do. There's all kinds of things we can do.
All kinds of opportunity, but you have to create the opportunity for that. So that's where it seemed rather automated in the beginning. You then have to find ways. So for us, it's we'll write notes to each other on the bathroom mirror. So like that's one of our ways of just how great you look today or whatnot.
Okay, I got to back up on that one. So this was a great idea in nursing school. When you were working midnights and I was working days, we were just passing in the night. Yeah. And we have this big vanity. And so we would write something nice, and then she would write something nice. And then you decided out of nowhere, I did a song lyric, and it was way too much work, guys. I do not recommend it. It was all on an angle, and it was just bad.
I also couldn't see in the mirror.
Kept trying to fix it. I mean, it's a mirror. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating. But then she comes out with, and all of a sudden there's colored ones, and she starts doing murals on my side. So I'm like, ooh, a sunset with a dolphin. We're gonna have birds and dolphins, and so it became a competition a little bit. So it didn't really go with where we're going, but we still use it. It is a good one.
But fondness and admiration, there are things that you do to be very intentional with them. It's in your words. It's the things that you say. It's intentionally saying things like, let me read it out here. So, I'm so proud of the way you did X, Y, or Z. Now, that seems so minimal when we say it in this context, but it's huge when you've been seeing someone get up at 4:30 in the morning to walk the dog and then go to the gym, and you've been seeing that happen for months now. So you look at the long term, the more linear spaces, and you can kind of see where you can compliment. It's really just simple as complimenting. And that builds, but it becomes very much an intention of your day. So set a little alarm.
It definitely is intentional. You have to kind of have that, because we default to the negative. We default because the negative violates the norm. I doubt you woke up today and said, my right arm feels amazing. It doesn't, that's not the norm. But whatever violates the norm is something we pay attention to. You didn't get an evaluation at work. You got all 5s. You got a 4 for punctuality and coming to work. And you're like, you ain't here when I get here. How do you know when I get to work? But you said I won 4, and you caught on it because that violates the norm. And so it's very easy for us to automatically see what our partner's doing that is irritation, or, well, that's not consistent with what they said they were going to do, or I thought, all these type of things. So it takes intentionality to really put your mind on the things that are really good. Stay curious about them, and really the mystery of who they are and what they want to accomplish. Jamie and we got in a rut pretty good with a lot of work schedule stuff we were doing, and it got kind of overwhelming. So we decided we need to get out of here. So we actually went to Kauai, first time we've really gone away in a while, for a long time, and we hiked where the Napali Coast is, if you've ever seen that, and we were prepared for it a little bit, but it was a torrential downpour. It was about 8 or 10 miles, and it was 6 inches of mud, wet rock. And we had to do a river cross up to our waist 5 times. And the guy at the beginning said, if it's too high, get down quickly or you'll get stuck there for a couple of days.
Come down the mountain quickly, the whole mountain.
Yeah, that mountain,
Come
in
down.
the wet rock
What is
mountain.
too much?
And what's too high? There's no line on
Is
the
there a
rocks.
line somewhere? No.
We're just kind of like, wait, our waist, is that too high? I don't know if that's too high.
I can still touch the bottom.
Anyways, we did the hike. But what was amazing was coming together and accomplishing a task, something I know she loves to do, and watching her thrive in this environment. Because maybe one of us isn't that strong at navigating where the trail is after you're in a river. I don't know, but she was really good at it, and she's really good in a lot of navigation and calmly moving ahead and knowing where to go. And so a lot of these things is watching her thrive, enjoy these things, sharing that moment and that memory together. Those are really good ways to increase that fondness, increase that appreciation. And you can do it locally. You don't have to go anywhere far, but little things like that are good. But if I could get 3 words, three words for you to remember walking out the door today, there's only 3. You know what they are, I'm sure. Yeah. Small things often. If you can remember that, you'll be ahead of the game. Just small things often. Think of the small things you can kind of do to make those deposits. Because when you're building the trust there, you have to have that. You have to have that ability to work through things. And that takes a lot of safety. It's interesting there in research, in the research, there is no relationship between conflict and divorce. So people who fight more don't get divorced more. People who don't fight don't stay married more. There's no relationship whatsoever. The big factor they found in 40 years of research of studying couples, the big factor they found was one thing: can they still laugh together? That was it. Can you have fun together? Can you still have fun? And so it's really important to have that strength-based strategy of building each other up and building up the relationship. There was a study, though, of newlyweds they stuck at them for 6 years, and many got divorced, many stayed married, and they looked at the ones that stayed together that really killed it and did a great job, and they found that 86% of them, the one thing they did well is they turned toward each other. So when there's conflict and difficulty, they leaned in and were present with each other instead of just kind of escaping. And that was the biggest factor between whether people stayed married or not, too. And it's really interesting now. There's new studies out and different things, and there's researchers are with high degree of predictability and consistency can predict basically whether a marriage will make it after watching the first 3 minutes of a fight. The first 3 minutes of a fight can determine the trajectory of where they're kind of going. The good news is I'm going to teach you how to change the trajectory. If you're thinking of the last fight you had and you're like, that was ugly. That was, I don't even know what he's talking about, but I'm pretty sure where we land on that one. Okay, so you're fine. We'll give you the stuff you need to know, so don't worry about that. But again, there's a lot of different things, though, that you can have that conflict with. Within the conflict, what they want to see is a 5-to-1 ratio. 5 times positive emotions expressed to the one negative. So for every 1 second of negative things expressed, 5 seconds of positive. That's a very good ratio in conflict. Outside of conflict, 20-to-1 is good. So your interactions back and forth, we call them bids. So if Jamie says to me, like, hey, how you doing, honey? And I'm like, cool, how you doing? You look great today. Your hair looks great. That's a bid. Her thumb up was a positive response to a bid. That's 1. If I said, hey, dinner was great tonight, and you're like, yeah, no thanks to you. Okay, that's a negative. I tried to do a bid, and I got rejected from the bid. That's a negative 1. So 20-to-1 puts you in a really strong place in those relationships of having those positive connections back and forth. And you can build systems of doing that. We kind of have a trump card if either one of us is like, let's go for a walk tonight. It's kind of like, that's the sign of like, we both are going to go for a walk right now. Like, and if we, so if she's frustrated after work and she's like, I just know she's frustrated and I don't think it's me. So I can say, hey, let's go for a walk, and we won't get out of the neighborhood. And she'll say, this was tough, and that was this, and just let her process it. But again, the bids there are important.
Yeah, and I would just say, even to that, that's a great example, but it has to do with me. But no, it's a great example, but it's because he's present. It's not the walk. Now, for me, it is the walk, partially, because that is how I also unpack things. So that is part of him knowing me. But so that's what's really important here, is that you know your spouse and what it is and what the environment is that's unpacking, instead of maybe just sitting in it miserably all by yourself. So back to that what women want thing, like that he knows that I need to process, and I'm probably not going to process very well on a Freudian style couch. So that's not going to work. So for me,
Yeah.
but we get walking, I can talk for days. So yeah.
It works out really well. But you have to study your partner. My dad gave me great advice. He said, Danny, you don't have to be an expert on women to have a great marriage. You have to be an expert on one woman to have a great marriage. And you need to study your wife, know what helps her feel relief, know what helps her in different areas, and really understand those things. I know which shoes fit her too tight. She needs a higher size. I know a metric 38 is her actual shoe size. I know she hates baby's breath and flowers. I can go on and on about that because I want to be able to do things that connect with her and remove any variables that are difficulties or struggles. So those are things you kind of need to know when you're moving ahead. But a lot of interactions, if you're getting any elevation and stuff like that, you're getting frustrated, just disengaging sometimes is important. Now, many of you may know we have 4 kids, and we work, of course, in different things. But it can be challenging sometimes. There's a lot of things happening and going on
Most
at
of
all
the
times.
time.
Yeah,
Most of the time.
And many of you have the same situation. So what can happen is sometimes there's serious things you need to talk about and discuss. And what we do is we have something we call the State of the Union.
Right. So we will get together.
The state of our union.
The state.
Yeah.
You want to expound?
No, you go for it.
So we'll just have for a while, and even now we still have a scheduled time that we will absolutely meet. Everything else stops. Phones go off. Everything is left to the side. You can take them with you, but you better not pick it up. And you go, and for us, we'll go out to dinner or something like that. But we're going to go through kind of the uncomfortable conversations. Even the finances. We'll just say, okay, here's where we are. This is where we're going. Where are we on our trajectory of where we want to go? So where are we with our goals? What's going on with the kids? Make sure that we're up to date, because more times than not, one of us is not up to date on something. So it'll be like, hey, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Hey, you're doing that. Oh, I thought you paid that. Oh, I paid that. No, okay. So you kind of do these that has solved so many of our small, irritating conflicts.
Because we're not having the conflict. We're not having those discussions in the time of conflict. When you get elevated, you get flooded, and you're angry, you're frustrated, you're yelling, your heart rate's above 100. The front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which makes all decisions, memory, decision-making, sense of humor, it turns off. It doesn't function. What fires is your amygdala. So your fight or flight, freeze, fawn, that part of your brain. So you're reacting from just the most basic part of a fear-based reaction. So when you get to that level, the best brains in the party here are not showing up. So you're not going to solve the problem you're actually talking about. You're just going to lash venom back and forth until you get exhausted, and then separate. So very, very common. But what we found is that doing the State of the Union, what it does is it protects the open time we have. So all the kids are aside doing whatever. We have time together. We can sit and cuddle and watch TV. We can go do whatever we want. We can just enjoy each other and not be like, hey, did you do this? Or hey, it's not our time now. It's our time to talk about serious stuff. That stuff will just hijack those little moments, and you have to protect those moments together because life is very, very complicated. It's hard. So 80% of the time women bring up issues. They do. They bring it up. They bring it to the area.
I heard an amen out
80%.
there.
There was an amen? Okay. I'm just a weatherman telling you what's going on here, but I can tell you this, 80% do. 96% chance if it's a soft startup. It's like, hey, can we talk about this or that? It's the conversation will remain at a lower level and be functionally, you'll be able to handle that situation and have that conversation. If you start aggressive, if you're like, did you do this again? And you fire off, 96% chance that will never recover. So if you wait till you explode to bring things up, you're gonna lash out and get some expression out there, but you're not gonna have the best outcome from whatever you're discussing. And those are the things we kind of want to put it into a little bit too. So there's a couple different kinds of problems we deal with in marriages. One of them are solvable problems. They're just situational. Those are things that they're about different topics, but the topics don't have different, deeper meanings. It's like, we should do this or that. We come up with it, we solve it, and we don't have to keep revisiting that problem. And it can be all kinds of different things. It can be disciplining for kids or house cleaning or power and different things, finances, sex, in-laws. Now, for some people, those things I just mentioned are actually not solvable problems. They're actually perpetual problems. In other words, there's a deeper meaning to somebody where, they have a history with money where one person is like, hey, we can spend this and we're fine. The other one's like, if we do this, I'll be this, 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 and we'll be living in the gutter, and I'm not holding cardboard. You're like, well, how'd you go there? Like, but again, but money means something different to them from where they've come from. And so in those situations, those problems can be perpetual. And so 69% of problems you have, and I have, we all have, are perpetual problems. They will never be solved. What's it like to hear that? Is it encouraging or discouraging? It can feel discouraging, but what I want to do is reset your expectation. When you realize these are moments where compromise is going to be needed, you can stop fighting for what exactly you think the outcome should be and realize, hey, we're gridlocked on this a little bit. This is not the hill to die on. Let's come up with a solution that's going to work for both of us. And kind of coming through, it resets your vision of like, this is something we're going to have that we're going to continue working through. Let's get a good rhythm for how we handle this and handle it in that way. That's usually based more in personality, where somebody's personality is a certain way, their upbringing, the way they've done things before, past relationships, whatever it may be. Just understand that there's a good percentage of issues that will require compromise.
Right. Just because it's not solvable, it does not mean that it's not manageable. It doesn't mean that you're not compatible because
100%.
It's not solvable. It just means that you are not, you can't function just as the individual. You have to function as a team.
I love that you said compatible. Compatible is a big word. That and soulmate. Those are my favorite words here. Soulmate. So you can believe what you want. I don't really care. Don't worry about it. But soulmates don't exist. But if you want to believe in, you can. Because
No
soulmates, people believe often soulmates are that one person on earth that you will always get along with and not have conflict with. That doesn't happen. You could have a biological twin that's been through what you have lived in the same home, and you will not have that experience. So people often think that's what a soulmate is in different things. And the fact of the matter is, anybody you're with, you're going to live with and have to get into the trenches with. One writer said, survive the tunnel of chaos. And that is the truth. Good marriages have the tunnel of chaos. They all do, and we have to survive it. So I'm glad you brought up the compatibility, because too often people think, well, we're not compatible because we have conflict. That is, you're not compatible with anyone then, if that's the case. And there is one way to be safe emotionally. If you want to be personally safe, all you have to do is be alone. You'll never have a problem. But if you entrust your heart to another human being, they are human. I don't care how much they carry you, how professional they are. I mean, we do pretty good, but I have a lot of training. And sometimes I'm like, what is happening right now? I remember one time Jamie and I were walking. I don't know what I even said. We're in a mall or something. I made some kind of comment. She turns around and just is like, all I could think of was, I got nothing. That's all I had, But in that moment, it was just like a matter of, I don't know anymore where I came from. But I mean, that's the way it is.
I don't remember it. Yeah, no idea.
So always acting in your partner's best interest. Here's a good piece of pro tip for you. You can be right or you can be together. But you can choose. You can't have both. So you have to make the decision. What is best for being together is the decision you kind of need to make. So if you're in a situation where there's some struggle, your partner's going through something hard, some of your questions address this. There's something called a tune that I want to just tell you about, and we'll kind of just go through them. Do you want to go through them?
Absolutely. So it's a tune, ATTUNE. So that's just to help you remember. That's just what we do. So A is for awareness, awareness of one's partner's pain. So be aware of what's going on, what's going on in him. Like what is it that I'm touching on right now that is so triggering? Why is this sentence? What's the arms raised? Like what did he possibly say? I have no idea. It could have been a lot of things, but but like seriously, what was it that he was not aware of in that moment that was in my head from his comment? And then T is for tolerance. Tolerance that there are always two valid viewpoints in any negative, what you call negative emotions. So, and what we often term as negative emotions. So that there is another point of view that is going on. Another T is for turning toward. So you want to always turn toward your partner's need.
Yeah,
so
when they're prickly, you want to still hold them.
Yeah.
You don't just cuddle with them and
He's
emotionally
really
when they're just soft and easy. When they're in that place, just be present with them. That's really good.
Absolutely.
That's turning toward.
Yeah. Absolutely. U is for trying to understand your partner. Try to actually figure out. It kind of goes back to the awareness, but let's go past awareness and actually from knowledge into understanding what in the world is really happening without the what in the world part.
Well, and
right?
I think too, like, understanding is also trying to understand before you try to be understood.
Oh,
Too
absolutely.
often we're like, no, you're not hearing me. This is what I'm. Instead, really try to understand where they are, explore where they are. Am I hearing you right when you say this? The more you can understand where they are and what their experience is right now and what they're going through, the easier you can respond and in a helpful way to that instead of reacting.
And so he mentioned earlier listening. And so N is for non-defensive listening. So listening is key, but if you're just listening so that you can figure out how you're going to defend what is being said, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
So
that's defensiveness, and that's a bad thing in general. And it's like defensiveness is putting the gloves on. I had a couple once I was talking with, and husband had his hands kind of crossed and was smiling, and she's like, I just don't feel supported. I'm doing all the work around the house, and I work too, and I do this and that, and you do this, and you just don't help, and you're trying to do whatever. And finally I stopped, and I said to him, is there something you want to add? And he's smiling. He's like, yeah, that's not accurate at all. I said, okay. He's 2 Thursdays ago, I vacuumed. Promise you, as I said, 2 Thursdays ago, I vacuumed. Boom! Well, drop the mic. I do help. I'm like, you're not hearing what she's actually saying. Like, you don't understand what she's kind of what her experience is. You're listening to try to refute that and say and defend yourself. So there's antidotes for defensiveness we'll talk to about later. But
and then for our tune, it is E is for empathy.
Empathy is a big one. Yeah, empathy is feeling with them. It's not just sympathy. It's not like, oh, it must be bad. You feel bad right now. Empathy is more like, I know this hurts. I know this has got to be difficult for you. And not fixing it. Guys, come on. That's hard. You know that's hard.
Fake empathy also is not a thing. So we have to be really careful with some of these sentences that have been so publicized on Facebook and Instagram and all of these places where, and it makes sure that it's coming, that you feel it genuinely, because if you don't, then it will come across that way to anybody else that you're talking to. So
yeah, disingenuine would not be good. The third kind of problem is gridlock problems. Gridlock problems are just not going to get better. They've been mishandled for so long. There's no hope of actually succeeding in addressing that. And again, that kind of helps this pattern start to emerge, that is emotional disengagement. So people who engage in some of the 4 most specific patterns that are destructive in a marriage, which are your contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. When people engage in those things, most of those marriages make it 5.6 years. That's generally the length they last. Emotional disengagement, where there's just this separation, 16.2 years is about average. And so again, and it should be noted too that statistically, most couples seek help with their relationship about 6 years after problems started. So nobody falls out of love. That's not a thing. You don't trip and fall and you're no longer in love with somebody. What it is you build, the resentment kind of builds in, and it just makes these little wedges, and all of a sudden you're separated and you're distant from that person. You feel kind of cold. And that emotional disengagement over time is just fatal to the relationship. Remember, can you still laugh together? That's what you want to try to avoid and get back to, is building that kind of connection again too. Because men and women can have different coping strategies. It's always tough. We see this quite a bit where men were kind of, maybe they were raised in a home where mom would get really loud or different things. And so they just learned, hey, if you just stay quiet, you stay under the radar, you're good. Mom will calm down, everything's good. And then, so their way of what they've seen modeled is like just stonewall, just disengage until everything gets calm. It's a way of soothing themselves. They're not trying to sabotage, they're trying to soothe themselves. And meanwhile, she may be thinking, not you, but she may be thinking like, hey, we got to talk this out now, and we are not going to be done until we talk it out now, because that's when I'm going to feel better. I'll feel better when it's talked out. And he's thinking, you're going to need to stop talking for this to be resolved. So her coping strategy is his trigger, and his coping strategy is her trigger. So we run into this quite a bit when we work with couples and individually customize what they need to move ahead. But just when you know what the other person kind of needs in that moment, you can do different things. So we recommend it once you're flooded, you're not going to solve the problem. Disengage. And I don't mean just walk away. Because again, if it's abandonment is her trigger and you're like, I'm going to keep things calm, see ya, slam the door, she's going to be following you and bad things are going to happen. And so because she is now triggered by your abandonment. So again, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, just basically saying, hey, this conversation is too important to talk about while we're so frustrated. Let's talk about this in 2 hours. Just have that moment of disengagement. That makes a big difference in coming back and talking about something when you're at a better place.
And it takes minimally 20 minutes for the brain to disengage in that. Like for the brain to switch back to being actually being able to even think through. So don't go and start writing a text right then of the things that you're going to want to talk about.
No texting.
Don't do, because you're still flooded. Even if you take that separation time, this is like a separation time. Like when I say separation time, I'm thinking like I'm going to take a break right now because I'm too upset by this to actually think properly and to use my executive functioning. So, but that takes a minimum of 20 minutes. And if you keep every time that you go through it again and you go through it in your head again and you feel that rise in your blood pressure and you feel that rise in the tension in your neck, you just did it. You're reset the timer because it's going to be another at least 20 minutes until you can calm down. And so, and then if you come back together and you still feel that rise, calm it down, and then we'll work through it again. You may have to take several times, is my point. You may take a little bit longer than what you're thinking to be able to rationally, and you want the best part of your brain to be functioning right here, to rationally go through whatever the situation is. So minimally 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's the way you're going to fully understand your partner if you can just actually listen and you're able to be capable of doing that in the moment. And then the third phase of love, second one was building trust. Third one is building commitment and loyalty. Building commitment and loyalty. And that's where couples learn to cherish each other and nurture gratitude for each other. And that's a big difference because you can also nurture resentment for what you think is missing from this relationship. If I would have been with so-and-so, I wouldn't have to live with this. Oh, he thought it was this. Oh, he married me. He said he's going to do this and this, and he ain't done none of that. Whatever is missing, if you nurture that over that time, you're not going to build that loyalty and that commitment. And so again, we want to make that love last a lifetime. Now, resentment, let's talk about resentment because it came up with some questions. Resentment, we talked about in anger. Anger has a feature to it. Everything we do, all behavior has a reward. And all behavior communicates. We cannot not communicate. All behavior, we get something out of it. We benefit in some way. So resentment, again, comes from this anger. Anger is communicating. And anger in this frustration, but anger starts to build up. Now, I would love to tell you that you could just hold on to that anger and things will get better. Because quite frankly, if time healed wounds, we could go find something different to do, right, for a living. Time infects wounds. Okay, so burying that creates resentment and gets this place where this emotional disconnection. And suddenly it's like, well, I got to work late. I'm working late every night. I'll be working late Monday through Friday. I got a new job, maybe work. It's 95% travel. I think it's a good idea. We don't want to be around them. We don't want to have that affection, even though we come up with every reason we want or excuse. Bottom line, that resentment gets into a bad place. So one of the biggest tools we have in that is forgiveness. And forgiveness, boundaries and forgiveness, we'll talk about later. But forgiveness is a powerful thing because it's the only thing an innocent person can do to let go of a hurt. If you've been hurt by your partner, something has happened, only you can keep that alive or let it go. Nobody can help you. You have that power. You have all the power. You have the power to say, that's not her best moment. It is what it is. That wasn't my best. We can let go of it and move on, or we can continue to hold on to it. Now, anger, like I said, has a feature because we hold on to that anger of like, how dare he talk to me? He will never talk to me like that again. I will make sure. And you hold on to that because you don't want to get wounded again. So the more angry you are, you keep that boundary up. I'm going to keep a boundary here. Problem is, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you're keeping the distance. You're causing damage between the two of you just by holding on to that anger from a past offense. He may not act angry again in that way. But either way, anger has a feature to it. So we have to realize when we stay angry, we got to kind of move on at some point. So it has that function, and that's really kind of something to make sure we're aware of. But again, that's something we really want to do is draw the positive out of our partner. It's very easy for us to have, these different wounds and different things. And confirmation bias is a powerful thing. Confirmation bias is basically what you are looking for, you will find. If you want to look at your partner and say, these are the ways she doesn't love me, you're going to find a bunch of ways she does not love you. If you notice the little things she's doing in progress and the little things she does to care and nice things, you'll notice those things. But you will, whatever you put your attention on is what you're going to notice. And so that can cause negative sentiment override, which means you can have an overwhelming number of negative emotions and thoughts about your partner as you're moving ahead in your relationship, and that can cause some problems. So knowing all that, let's get into some of the questions. And we sum the questions into certain categories and make it a little bit easier because we talked about a lot of this already. But some of the questions were about navigating personal problems in general, like, we all have triggers from our history, things that are important. The way triggers work in the brain is the brain works on emotional strength of a trigger. That's what anxiety work is all about. So if something powerful happens in our life and it hurt us, we have a little TSA agent up here who's going, I'm going to scan for that one. I'm watching for that threat. So any of you have anxiety issues, you realize it's exhausting because you're constantly scanning for threats. The problem is it's not data-driven. It doesn't mean it'll ever happen again. Let's say Jamie was bitten by a little white fluffy dog. Let's just say it happened. 6 years old, bitten by a little white dog. A little brain, a 6-year-old brain is like little white fluffy dogs. Watch out for them. They're dangerous. Now, you and I all know there's not a rash of little white fluffy attack dogs running around Virginia Beach. But in your mind, over years, she begins to realize, okay, they're not all dangerous, but some of them are. It's not data-driven. It's not true. But the emotional trigger is what the brain tries to protect us from. So we have these triggers that can be a problem. In fact, we can bleed from a past relationship onto our current one. And it can be very easy to do, where somebody else did something, and now it's like you see that again, and you're like, oh, no, you're not going to do that too. And it's not at all what they're trying to do. It's a different person. But again, recognizing and knowing your own stuff is a big deal when you're trying to navigate some of this. So we don't want to put a lot of that on our partners. There's 3 of you in your relationship. There's a me, a her, and a us in the middle here. I have to own what's mine. I tell couples, do not make we problems out of me problems. If I can solve it and it's my problem, I need to handle it. I can let her know, having a rough day right now. This is not really good. We study our heart rate variability and a lot of different things, and sometimes we'll check it and go, hey, if anything comes up, today's not the day to talk about it. I don't have any capacity to talk about anything today.
It's not a State of the Union Day.
No, not a State of the Union Day. We're going to postpone that one. But again, for us in general, it's like knowing that, always understanding, look, what's a me problem and what's an us problem? So what happens is if you put too much weight on the us and you expect somebody else to fix it, first of all, a lot of times your partner can't. They can only walk with you through it. But when you own it and you say, this is mine, I'm going to work on this and try to figure it out, then that's what you can kind of work on, and you can help make things a little bit better and reduce some frustration. So I also ask them, what is in your circle of control? What can you actually control right now? Because you have enough energy right now, a sap like a plant, to produce fruit in areas and solve what you need to. But you have to prune away the things that are just worthless. Sometimes we put a lot of energy into things that we have no influence over. We can't think of political years and election years, how much energy we stick into. We can vote and we can do other things to try to help a candidate, but we put a lot of exhaustion and energy into anger and frustration. And if you want to post frustrating things on social media, you're welcome to, but it's just for an audience of you, and all it is you being frustrated. You're not going to change anyone's actions or behaviors that way. So but again, it's a lot of energy wasted. And that's energy you just don't need. So what is it I can actually change? If I don't like something going on right now, what do we have in our inventory? What can we do differently? Let's pivot, adjust, and move on. And save the energy of judging yourself, please. If you come see me, you're going to hear that a lot, ever, because take off the jersey. You can't put the jersey on that plays the game with a number on the back and then put the referee jersey on in the same game. It's not how that works. Okay, so stop judging yourself, whether you're good or bad on everything. Look at something, observe it, pivot, make the adjustment, and move on. It's much easier. But again, just really kind of pay attention to those type of things, and that is what's going on inside of you. And I would tell you too, just again, let your partner know what's going on in you if you're struggling with something, but then it's not, and what your expectation is. You don't have to fix this. I'm working on this or whatever, just so they know. They may be seeing certain things and not even know. I know we deal a lot with ADHD.
Yeah.
In marriages. We get a lot of aha moments from that one.
It's interesting because I actually see quite a few patients with that come in and they have ADHD or think they have ADHD. And generally, I'm not going to say that, but they often have ADHD. And then with a side of marriage problems, like so, you have ADHD and a side of marriage problems because of the interpretation that the spouse is feeling, and so. Yeah, so we'll hear things like he doesn't really listen, or she doesn't really listen, or she talks and she interrupts me all the time, and we need to make sure that first that doesn't mean that we can't teach behaviors that will calm that down in ADHD, but that's just a good example. There are other things going on in mental health that could be causing or be causal in the relationship problem. So it's something that you will learn as a spouse to learn how to manage. There are tools that you can implement for both the person experiencing the mental health issue, as well as the understanding. We'll go back to attune that will help you to manage that with your spouse, so that it doesn't become a we problem. And so really keeping
if they can
those
understand
things
what's going
separately.
on, and they're like, oh, that's what's going on, it helps make a lot more sense, and they'll help them understand you. It makes it a lot easier to do that too. Now we're going to cover a lot of the other stuff from the questions too in the next time we talk to you on the 12th, and talk about blending families. But I want to leave you with a couple things really quickly. I want to reiterate there is hope. We work every day with couples. I love the stuff I'm telling you about because I watch people change the trajectory of their marriages. I've seen affairs that have been egregious and people turn around and have phenomenal relationships. I've seen some of the most horrific things turn around. There is hope in different things, and get help from somebody who knows what they're doing if you need it. Josh golfs a lot. I don't golf much, but I had a kid in a youth group that golfed a lot, and I wanted to spend time with him, so I bought some clubs when I was a youth pastor. And so I went to the range to kind of golf a little bit, and I remember this older man came up to me and said, "Hey, listen to what this guy's doing. He's really good." This kid was really good at golf. And so I realized, I was like the one pastor that didn't golf in the world. I realized I could have spent the last 10 years golfing well if I would have learned what I learned in one lesson from this 15-year-old. It took me one lesson. So how long do you want to do things wrong and do it right? So don't think of it. It's just coaching. It's pivoting. It's taking what you got and moving on. The fact that you're here right now, man, good on you guys. Tell you what, you're here just trying to learn this stuff is phenomenal. But add to just remember the grass is greener where you water it. Amen. It's an easier road sometimes. Well, I don't have all this drama if I go with this person. I don't have any of that. Yeah, I don't have to climb Mount St. Hurt and resentment. Yeah, you're right, you don't. But starting over again until you get another mountain of resentment and the pain that comes with that and the baggage is a cycle that's going to cause a lot of pain. The grass is greener where you water it and you invest the time. And remember, small things often. Make those little deposits in your relationship. Go do things you love together. It's like a checkbook. You guys, if you're going through something hard, you're writing big checks, and you're going to overdraw it if you don't put something in it. So continue to make those investments together. And I would say do right things regardless of outcomes. Align yourself with the husband, the man you want to be, the wife you want to be. Do those things. It's not if it's reciprocated. Love between two people, like you can't be transactional. It's like, if you do what I want, then I'll do what you want. That's a transactional relationship. It's not even love, the way it's communicated. So be that person no matter how they're acting. If they're not in a good place to receive it, you killed it. Good job. Brought her coffee in bed this morning. She didn't thank me. Actually, I did.
And I didn't thank him.
I was just using an example. Guess I was in there.
Thank you for the coffee
Freudian.
this morning.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. You're welcome. But even regardless of that, it's like, you do those things, you don't get that. I didn't do that because I wanted her to say thank you. And why she's never getting any more coffee in bed if she doesn't say thank you. I mean, what? I did it because that's the man I want to be. That's the way I want my wife to feel that when she wakes up and go, oh, he thought about me. I walked away going, nailed it. Good job, man. That's what because I aligned with my values and said, that's how I want to be. So do a lot of that too. And I want to leave you with this too. Last thing, I promise. I try to get all my couples minimally to do this. 6 minutes per day of meaningful communication. No phones, face-to-face, meaningful communication. 6 seconds per day of passionate kissing. And I don't mean 1 second here, 1 second there, 1 second there. 6 seconds in total kissing. And then sex at least once a week. Those are the things that really kind of can be habits. Do right things in a relationship, even when you don't feel like you want to do right things. Develop disciplines and patterns of things that you know strengthen your relationship in order to kind of maintain that relationship the direction it's going.